Hey guys, welcome to an episode of The Lock-In. I'm in Las Vegas. That beautiful view you saw there was of the mountains and I think that awful Trump Tower. I have just woken up in Las Vegas and Dara is still not here, although I think he is en route. I think he might actually even be in a plane right now. He was meant to be on the flight with me yesterday, but his flight from Dublin to London was delayed. Not too much, but he had a tight enough layover, and unfortunately that meant that he did not make it. I was actually on the plane and the plane had not taken off, and I feel like he could have run for it and made it, but they closed the door, and apparently once you close the door of a plane, that's it, they don't let anyone else on. So he was told, sorry, you're not getting your connection, and I actually don't know what happened to him. I think he ended up in Alex O'Brien's house, which is very kind of Alex. Shout out to Alex, former guest. He was very underdressed for the snow, so I'm a little bit worried. I thought it was going to end up being like that scene at the end of The Shining. It was just going to be Dara O'Carney frozen stiff outside a labyrinth. But he is, I believe, on the flight, the next day's flight, so he's in the air right now, although we'll have to check that. Hopefully he makes it here later today. I'm going to play a satellite on my own. Satellite King Dara not here, but maybe, just maybe, he might fly in time to late reg this one, I don't know. Anyway, I will catch you up when I know more, but yeah, fingers crossed for Dara making it here eventually. So, as you can see, Dara made it. Dara, wake up. Good morning. How's the jet lag?
Fine, really, except whatever this is.
So this man here, got off the plane at about 8 p.m. yesterday, and at about 9:15 p.m. he was what?
Playing max late registering the last satellite.
What was it, like 40 hours with no sleep and then just straight on the horse?
Yeah.
So man, how does that go?
I made a really good start. I trebled up fairly early on, and then I kind of withered back. Made a call I'm not sure about. Got short, doubled again, but the blinds were going up. So with about 80 left, 35 seats, I got in flipping blind and lost. So.
Boo. Well, look, one thing we are going to talk about, actually probably in the next bit of this show, is it was a milestone structured satellite, which basically meant that you had to get to 12 starting stacks to be able to sort of walk away with your seat intact. That's the sort of format we're starting to see in Europe a little bit as well. Nick O'Hara has brought them in to some Irish events, some EPT type stuff, and but in his ones you get to 10x and then you're out, so you sort of get the chips that are of the value of the thing you need. But with this one, 12x sort of created a few new twists in the tail. Now, we didn't get to the exact tail, but there are some implications, and obviously Dara, being the satellite king, this is maybe providing you an opportunity for an extra chapter of the book?
Yeah. We're actually talking about writing another book now that goes into all these kind of strange formats, a different chapter for each one. This one is kind of weird because I think essentially what it really does is it just turns it back into a normal satellite. Because while you do get your seat if you get to 12x starting stack, you don't need that. So there's no real incentive to that. You'll get exactly the same seat if you're there at the end with whatever stack you have. Because every time somebody qualifies, obviously more than chips needed to buy a seat go out of the prize pool. So the later you get in the tournament, the less chips you're actually going to need to win a seat. So I don't think you should actually take any risks to try and get that target stack. You should just treat it as a bonus if you get there, but otherwise just treat it as a normal satellite.
Yeah, it did seem as though, looking at the outcomes of all of those, about 40% of the people, even sometimes a little bit higher than that, were getting through at the end when the bubble was bursting, so to speak. So yes, while 50 or 60% of people were managing to get to that target number and get out, it did end up being, as you said, like an old-fashioned satellite, with actually the average stack being an awful lot shorter as a consequence of the structure.
Yeah, I think the average stack would be also closer together because like in a normal satellite there'll be a runaway chip leader who is 5 times the chips that they need, but there won't be that in this because as soon as they hit the target they're out. So I think you're still going to it's less likely you're going to scrape through with almost nothing. That's probably a slight difference. But other than that, I think strategically you just played like a normal satellite.
Good tips there. Well, we might talk a little bit more about that unique satellite structure later on, but we are also going to try and give a bit more detail on our first few days here. Okay, so what I will say is first impressions very strong. Wynn is obviously a beautiful location. We were very lucky to have a fantastic event here. I think we called it the European Open for some copyright reasons, but it was very much a Unibet Open about 4 years ago in this beautiful hotel, and you really do get looked after. The Wynn, sort of above and beyond anything else I've seen in Vegas, really cater to that sort of high-end, bit of luxury, bit of five-star treatment. So it's been really nice to be here. And it's obviously very nice to actually be staying in the hotel as well. Dara and I normally like slumming it in places like the Gold Coast. Slight upgrade this year. We went to Bally's for the World Series. We stayed in Paris. But this time round, it's been, enjoying the luxury of the Wynn, it must be said. And that means we're on location where it's all going down. And actually, Dara and I put a really strong premium. I actually do recommend people out there, obviously, when they do Vegas, what we really love is being able to just like register the tournament handily the night before so we don't get involved in alternate queues. The one thing about this one is maybe going to be a victim of its own success at some level is that there are alternate lists on a couple of tournaments. That's just because the numbers are massive. The Prime event that was on here just before we arrived got 5,500 runners, maybe even more than that. And it was guaranteeing as if it was going to get 2,000 runners. So that really tells you the kind of numbers. 15 million guaranteed on the big one here, the 10K that Dara and I are both going to play, but it's going to hit like 25 million, I think. And like some people might be listening to this and go, that's ridiculous. It's not. I genuinely think it's going to hit something like that. I think there has been an appetite for a long time in the world of poker for a winter World Series, if you want to call it that. A big festival, a big 1 month long, maybe even 5-6 week long festival, November, December. A little bit like the World Series, maybe not quite as big, but something with that same flavour. It's never been done. There's been big festivals at that time of year, 1 week, 2 week festivals, that type of thing, but never anything on this scale. I think they're only going to go bigger with this. I think the lessons they're going to learn is, yes, we love this and we want more of it. And actually going up against Prague, in Europe, obviously the second biggest festival in Europe maybe every year, it's no tall order to have that when you really do rely on bringing people across from Europe. But it seems like they've come, like we're in a contingent of at least 25-30 Irish. There might actually be more than that when the dust settles and we find out who made the journey. So impressive stuff so far. But we haven't played the main yet. We don't know, apart from those satellites, how we're going to fare, but we will keep you in the loop. Okay guys, so here we are, a bit more like the normal format. We're sitting in actually it's a very plush suite we've got here, so maybe at some other point I will turn the camera and show you guys what we're dealing with today, but way better than the curtains in the Rio. I'm just going to say that, way better than the curtains.
Yeah, we have some nice abstract art here behind us. These are not curtains. They might look like curtains, but that's just because you're traumatized in having seen us in front of so many crap curtains in the past on these trips. Indeed.
Well look, I'm going to talk about a few things that have cropped up over the last few days. Obviously been a bit of a weird couple of days. Trying to get Dara here in the first place was tricky enough. But this morning, so the first morning that Dara's had here, we were fortunate enough to meet with our old pal, Mark Brody. Had a great time. We went for some schmear bagel breakfast in Seagulls up the road, very nice, and then actually watched the match with him, the Argentina game, which he put rather a large bet on. I'm not gonna say it because maybe he doesn't want that put out there, but a rather large bet that immediately had Dara and I rooting for Argentina, having previously been rooting for Croatia based on the size of his wager on Argentina. Anyway, luckily for him it came in, so well done Mark, and thank you for breakfast. We had a lovely morning. Sick, so sick, so sick. But I do want to, because I only briefly touched on it in the clip with Dara waking up. Dara's travel woes. Everybody loves other people's misery, basically, and you had a miserable day.
Yeah, well, basically, I was kind of forewarned because we had snow in Dublin, obviously, a few days before, and I was checking on Twitter, and there were all these reports of securities taking a long time to clear, etc., etc. So I decided to leave nothing to chance. I turned up at the airport almost 5 hours before my flight, make sure I went. Then I was through security in 5 minutes, so now I've got 4 minutes and 55 to kill, or so I thought. I then spent about an hour in the queue to get on the plane because I didn't have priority boarding for once, and then realised there was actually no sign of anybody coming. The plane was sitting outside, the ground staff were there, but they weren't letting us board, and somebody went up and asked, and they were told that the flight crew hadn't arrived yet, and that was the problem. So we ended up taking off 2.5 hours late. And the layover in London was only 2.5 hours, so I thought, okay, well, I'm dry dead now. I'm not going to make my connection. I'm going to have to figure it out when I get there. I landed thinking I've given up, but then I got a text from you. You basically said we're still we're boarding now, but then you sent me another message saying they're de-icing the plane, so you might make it. So I decided, okay, well, I'll hustle and try and make it. They wouldn't give me my boarding pass in Dublin for London because they said my documents had to be checked in London. So I get to the flight connections place with the British Airways staff. Now, I kind of feel that, they had 2 people working there, and I kind of feel that on a normal day, they're maybe dealing with 4 or 5 people every hour who've missed their connection, not 500 people all at once, extremely stressed. So the British Airways response was literally a lady screaming, "You've all missed your flights, get out of here, go back through arrivals, check the app, it'll update automatically." People were going up and asking questions. She was going, "Don't ask me any questions, just get out of here, back through arrivals." I was going up saying, like, "Look, I have a message from my friend saying the plane has to go taken off."
We're still here.
Said, "You have still missed the plane. Get out of here, through arrivals.
Abandon all hope."
Yeah. So it took me quite a while to clear British customs, which I wasn't expecting to have to do. But a lot of the machines weren't working, the automatic machines. So I ended up having to get my passport manually checked. I get out there, I'm constantly refreshing the app, no sign of anything happening. So I decided, okay, well, I might as well be in a queue for assistance, and when I get to the top of the queue, maybe they can help me. I get to the top of the queue, they're like, "Check the app." I said, "I've been doing that for the last however long, nothing is happening." And they were like, "Okay, well, this is area A. If you go to area G at the other side of the terminal, they should be able to help you." So walk along the terminal, come to the other end, get another very long queue, gradually work my way up to the top of that. And they're like, "Oh yeah, okay, we understand. Yeah, you're going to have to check the app." And I was like, "No, that's what I've been doing." And they're like, "Oh, okay." I showed them the app, and they're like, "Yeah, it should be updating, but we don't know why. But we can't help you on here. You're going to have to go to area D, which is halfway between where I've come from and where and I'm not, at this stage, I'm pretty sure they're just making up letters to get rid of me. But I'm like, okay, whatever. Go back to D, on queue, take to the top. Exact same situation. They tell me to check the app. I tell them they can't. Then they tell me to go back to A, and I'm like, that's literally where I started. That's literally where I started. You are literally just sending me from queue to queue now. So they go away, and a lady comes out, and she actually looks like she might know what she's doing. There's just an air of like confidence about her. So I'm thinking, okay, maybe this is going to get sorted now. So I tell her the story, and she wants all the details, coming at through arrivals, etc., etc. And she's like, okay, well, what you have to do is you have to check the app. And I'm like, no, that's what everybody else has told me. There's nothing happening on the app. And she says, show me. So I literally hand my phone over to her, and she's like working around on the app. And she's like, oh, okay, yeah, this isn't working. We don't know why. So she goes away, comes back, and says, okay, we've been told this is a phone number everybody has to ring. And I'm like, okay, yeah, this doesn't sound great. Because I know there's about 500 people in the same boat. But she says, I know it's annoying, but this is all you can do, phone this number. And then she gives me another number and says, if you phone that number, if the first number doesn't work. So I'm thinking, okay, well, I'm now thinking the first number won't work, but the second number might. So I ring the first number, and it's one of these, like, if you were at the airport and you didn't like the food you were given on your airplane, press 1. If you were at the airport and a flight attendant was rude to you, please press 2. If you're at the airport and your flight has been disrupted, please press 3, and I'm pressing 3. And then menu system, like, so I press 3, 7, 4, 8, whatever. And eventually it rings true, and then there's this stock message, we comply to all international regulations on disrupted flights, blah, 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 45 minutes of that, then it rings true again. And then a female voice, automated, says, "We are experiencing too many calls at the moment. Please try again later." Click. So I'm like, okay, the first number didn't work. Let's try the second number. Different menu system. Navigate through that. Get the same automated, "we comply with all the regulations" message, and then get literally the exact same female voice going, "Too many people ringing right now. Try again later." So I spend the next hour ringing the two numbers and getting the exact same response every time.
It's now like 9 o'clock in London, and your flight left at 5.
Yeah. So now I know I'm not getting on a flight today. I just have to decide what to do now. So I decide to make one last effort. I don't want to leave the airport without being told you can come back tomorrow and get the flight. So I go back into another long queue, and this queue is full of people who are clearly in the same boat as me. And there are Germans shouting, "This is why nobody respects England anymore. You are a joke of a country, blah, blah, blah." Everybody's getting very, very tense. It's basically a riot scene about to kick off. So British Airways' response is to send people down the line going, "Get out of the queue, there's no point. They're not going to be able to help you. You're just going to get the same thing again."
Just go where you were going to go.
Yeah, people just take a little bit longer to accept that. But at least we now know that everybody's been told the same message. So I think, okay, right, that's what I'm going to have to do. Try to book an airport hotel. Obviously, they're all full now because everybody else who missed their flight has booked one. I'm like, what the hell do I do now? So I send a message to our friend Samir that I normally stay with in London. And he's like, "Yeah, slight problem. I'm in India at the moment, and my wife has COVID, so probably can't go there."
To the rescue, though. To the rescue.
To the rescue. Alex O'Brien, the wonderful Alex O'Brien.
Shout out, Alex.
Shout out, Alex. Yeah, she says, yeah, by all means come to my place. So I get the train into Paddington, get an Uber out to her place, which is absolutely incredible. And couldn't be a better hostess. She has the door open waiting for me to come in. Champagne on ice. In a golden goblet.
Only O'Carty could have the worst day ever. It seemingly be awful, but he ends the day drinking champagne in a posh house.
In a really posh house, yeah. I put some pictures on Twitter, and her couch is so big.
It's so big.
People thought I'd shrunk. I look like a little man in the middle of a normal couch, but I'm actually a normal man in a bath. And her place is just incredible. So I actually spent a lovely evening chatting to...
In fact, it's so nice. I would recommend getting stranded in London and calling on her.
Completely. Yeah, so then I spent the night ringing every hour to these two numbers and thinking, well, they can't be surely there can't be too many people ringing at 4 a.m. So at the very least, I'm going to get through at 4 a.m. No, same messages, both numbers, all through the night. I was talking to my wife. She said, put something on Twitter. The last time you had a problem with an airline, you put something on Twitter and they responded. So I did that. Wake up the next morning to a message from British Airways saying, "Please DM us and we'll try to sort you out." I'd already told David I'm bailing now. I'm just flying back to Dublin because I checked the London flight and it was already booked out. So I thought, okay, well, there's no way I can even get on that plane now. And I'm not waiting 2 days here. So I'm just going to fly home and bail on the whole trip. But I was talking to a very nice gentleman called Chris by DM on Twitter, and he got the whole thing sorted in about 5 or 10 minutes. So I literally went from thinking I'm completely fucked, I'm not getting anywhere, to okay, now it's all sorted.
Do you know what I suspect, guys? I suspect, despite how much both of us hate this term, we hate it. We actually really despise this word. I think you're an influencer now, Dara. I think Dara's an influencer, and he can get shit done by just complaining on Twitter.
I mean, it's possible. I think it also helped that literally the only tweet I put out that day was "Listen to me on BBC Radio this morning."
Oh my god, that's the one they would have seen.
Yeah,
they didn't see that. He's on the beam.
Oh my god,
we got to fucking sort
this guy's on BBC World Service. He's clearly a big deal.
Amazing.
Yeah, they just completely got a bad read there.
Well, look, he did make it here eventually, and as I mentioned when I pointed the camera in his sleepy face a little while ago, he jumped straight in the SATI. We mentioned that SATI and some of the strategic implications, the unique format, the milestone kind of thing. But I wanted to maybe ask you one question and one tip maybe you can give people, because as I said, these types of SATIs are happening in Europe now. They've kind of taken over some of the tours. we're personally not huge fans of this format. We kind of prefer the old school format. I happen to have a belief that like the kind of person who wants to satellite into something bigger rather than buy into something bigger probably is also the kind of person who really loves the idea of going into a satellite, never getting above 4 starting stacks, but somehow cockroaching their way to the seat. So I think that there's a kind of a marriage of those two people, maybe wanting the same thing a lot of the time, and therefore I think it actually is the type of format that they like. However, this format is a real thing, and we are seeing it at more and more festivals. So there are implications if you're going to play them. Dara, I thought maybe you could talk about the one where if you're getting very close to the target stack, so you're not cockroaching your way for when the people have been taken out of play and you're going to be there at the end. You're actually maybe doing really well. You got 8 starting stacks or 9 starting stacks, but you need to get to 10. What are the kind of mathematical equations you could be faced with?
Yeah, I mean, it's essentially like people have asked, does this make everything in your book, Poker Satellite strategy, moot? And it really doesn't. Like the most important skill in a satellite, as described in the book, is to calculate what your chance of cashing is at any point, what's your chance of a seat. Now that's normally difficult in a normal satellite because you have to kind of estimate what the average stack is going to be, and then you have to estimate, well, okay, I don't need to get to that, maybe I need to get to 70%, 75%. So it's quite a complicated calculation, and then later on it's a very complicated calculation, which we go into in the book. But in these, it's bogged simple. If you have 60% of the target stack, you have 60% chance of cashing. If you have 70%, it's 70%. If you have 80%, it's 80%, etc. The major implication of this is that, for example, if the example you gave, if you've got 9 starting stacks and you need 10, so you're 90%, now your upside on any future is only 10% because you can only win 1 seat.
Yeah.
So if somebody shoves for like 4 starting stacks, you stand to lose 40% in equity. If you lose this, get it against it, but you only gain 10%. So you need to be a 4-1 favourite. You basically need 80% equity.
Small caveat there, we have seen some of these satellites where if you win enough for the seat, but you have chips left over, you get to play on and maybe win a second seat and spin that one up. Obviously, this wouldn't apply to that scenario,
Correct.
but it does apply very much to the more normal one.
The one you described is basically just a locked-in cash game where you're not allowed to leave until you've won the seat. And like that's one of the reasons why I don't like this new format. I mean, there has never been anything to stop somebody from buying into a 1-2 game for 100 and try and spin it up to the price of a seat. That's essentially what a target satellite is, except in the target satellite you're not allowed to quit at any point.
And the blinds will go up.
Well, you can move from the 1-2 to
that's
the
true.
2-5
You
if
keep
you want.
moving up in tables.
I have actually heard people do that online and kind of create their
almost
own
like spinning up that way.
their own satellite. Yeah. So that's essentially what the ones you're describing. They're just pure chip EV, so there's literally no special thing. It's just played like a cash game, except that you can't leave until you win the seat. The ones here have this other winkle too, where even though it's 1 seat for every 10 people, you need to get to 12 starting stacks before you're allowed to cash out. So actually, your chips are immediately devalued from 12 starting stacks to having a value of only 10 starting stacks. So that actually means that it's kind of a strategic mistake to try to do that. Really, all you should do is try to hang on till the end, and maybe you'll get through with 1 starting stack or 2 starting stacks. So I think people are going to. In fact, I saw this yesterday at my table. People were playing these completely wrong. They didn't even know whether they were over the starting stack or not. A few people.
That's amazing when that's the
people on my
point.
table, and literally it was other people at the table going, "I think you've got more than what you need now."
Get your chips, mate.
And they count to like, "Oh yeah, I do. Yeah, okay. I guess I'm out of here." So if they didn't even know what they had, they clearly weren't making any strategic adjustment either of the type that we're describing, where like you might have to be a 4-1 favorite if you're very near. So people were playing, them really weird. A shout out to one person who was at my table, Shireen. She arrived at the table and she appeared to be drinking very heavily. And I just thought, okay.
Shout out to Shireen, who's been drinking sozzle drunk with you.
Yeah, she appeared to be absolutely sozzled. Now she wasn't.
No,
drunk.
she wasn't though.
She actually wasn't drunk, and she was on the
nice angle.
She was on the grid, an episode of the Grid where she talked about how she does this trick of appearing drunk at the table.
So you're onto her immediately, were you?
I wasn't onto her at all because I had no idea who she was.
Okay.
But then she basically outed herself to me because she said, "Oh, I know who you are," and then she started talking about Floptimal,
which she helped make.
Yeah, well, she's the actual creator of Floptimal. So I was like, okay, clearly not random drunk girl if you created a GTO piece of software. And then I
hustler. What a hustler.
And then I remembered that she had been on Jen's show. I was like, yeah, I do remember an interview on Jen's show with a female who had developed Floptimal, and she said, yeah, that was me. So really good hustle, Shireen. I completely bought the act, except she was playing really well from the start. So, I did recognize at least that she was playing really well.
Game recognizes game. Okay, finally, guys, because obviously we're here for the big one, the 10K. 1B is on right now as we speak. We've actually just got word, like second break of 1B, so 4 hours into 1B, they've hit the 15 million already. Yeah. So this is going to be conservatively a $25 million prize pool. It might even get closer to 30. They don't know how many people are coming in for tomorrow. We decided, let's be clever here. Let's not get put on an alternate list in case there is one, and let's get down there and register as soon as possible. So we're heading down now. Hopefully there isn't an alternate list already. I don't think there will be, but I think there will be tomorrow. If you're stuck on that one, sorry guys, bad luck. But you get to be part of an incredible tournament. Final point on this before we run down and we probably should do it pretty soon, is there's a bit of a markup debate going on. There always is around World Series time. I guess this is the other big one now. And I believe there's a bit of a fight going on between self-appointed markup police Sean Deeb and friend of the show, but both friends of the show. Two very friendly people to the show. Ryan Plant, and they're going to have their fight, and that's all fine, and we leave them to it. But it does bring up the question of markups and fair markups and whatever. And actually, I think Sean is trying to make a point about Rampage, who managed to win on his second bullet, I think. I hope I'm getting the details right here. Yesterday in the high roller, and then decided, because he sold for the first bullet he played, he decided to reimburse everyone, which is obviously very generous. But Sean actually, in a converse way, kind of think that's a bad precedent to set, because you don't really want people expecting that, and it wouldn't be expected of anyone. So if he's doing something like that, he's doing it for his community, he's doing it for his own personal reasons, brand reasons maybe, and just generosity and decency. So fair play to him. No one's going to give you a hard time. But I do get, I suppose, Sean's side of that one. What I want to talk about is fair markups. And so I, for example, don't mind saying this, I'm looking to sell roughly 2/3 of an event of this size. That's what I do for the main event World Series. 65%, something around that is normally what I want to have sort of in other people's pockets, keep the rest for myself. It's a big buy-in. And I think I actually sold at too small a markup, because I was expecting the 15 million. It's going to be fucking 30 million now. Yeah. I think people who bought me are getting a good deal, but that's okay too, because I appreciate anyone who buys a piece, and they're usually the same kind of 8 or 10 people who always buy their 5% and whatever, so it's appreciated. But I think there are two sides of that, and I wanted to ask you, Dara, as well, just to come in on the idea of markups, because you would similarly sell for the very big stuff. You wouldn't sell for the 1Ks, 2Ks, but as soon as you get into that kind of higher band category, you would sell a chunk.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and I mean, the problem with markup is none of us know. I mean, that's the bottom line. We all believe we have a certain edge on the field, and if we're being generous towards people who are buying us, we're maybe dividing that. If we think we're actually have a 50% ROI, we'll sell at 1.25 or whatever. But there's nothing to stop anybody from selling what the market will bear as well. Like I sold out very quickly.
Makes you wonder, makes you think, could I got more?
Well, this is it. This is it. But I was happy with the rate. I thought it was a fair rate. I have huge respect for both Sean and Ryan. I think they're both very honourable. So I think the problem here is they're both, from their own perspective, completely reasonable, but at different points, because they have a different opinion of what the fair markup is in this case. Ryan absolutely believes he's being fair at the markup he's charging. He's not trying to scam anybody. He's not trying to overcharge. Sean, on the other side, believes that the markup is too high, and he does feel that he's overcharging. And this is, unfortunately, is not something you can ever resolve, because everybody's just making an estimation.
One point I'd actually like to add to that is, one thing I think Sean said was almost implying that, if you're as successful as Ryan has been, and he obviously got a great poker resume, why are you selling for this? It's a great value tournament. Why people sell for various reasons. People have various risk tolerances. I've always been of the nittier sort, and even when there were great shots to take, World Series mains and whatever, and that would be the right thing to kind of take a bigger gamble in when you do feel like your edge is bigger. The bottom line of it is, I don't like going more than Kelly Criterion. Kelly Criterion would sort of give me my guidepost, and once in a while I might take a shot bigger, But that's just my risk tolerance. A lot of people who've gotten a lot wealthier than I've ever gotten have taken bigger risks and they've worked out. A lot of people I know who went bust in the game took bigger risks. They were better poker players than I was, but they took much larger pieces of themselves and risks in bigger things and ultimately went broke. So that just comes down to your personal preference. You might also lock money away and diversify into other things and just keep yourself with a constrained bankroll. So I don't think that's a valid point, actually.
Yeah, and I think I have heard that point made before by other very prominent poker players, and I think what all of those players have in common, apart from the fact that generally they all are very good players, but I think there's also a survivor bias here, because taking shots for them has worked out. Taking an aggressive approach to bankroll management has worked out, and they don't necessarily see all the people who followed a similar strategy and ended up bust. Because, you know, if you go on pokerdope.com and you enter like 2,500 runner field, 10,000 buy-in, it's going to tell you that to reduce your risk of ruin, you probably need a bankroll of something like 10 million or at least 5 million, probably 10 million.
Yeah.
And like, you know, who has a bankroll of 5 to 10 million? So if you're being sensible, if you only have 1 million and PokerDope is saying 5 million, you should only have 20% of yourself. But, you know, people who have taken aggressive shots and it's worked out for will say, well, like if you're doing well from poker, why do you need to sell at all?
Yeah. And I think they are really important. Actually, the person that is dawning on me right now, and I may have said this on the regular show once before, Paul Wasika, I remember, wrote a piece in Bluff magazine 12 years ago or something, talking about how everyone is not taking enough risk and everyone needs a shot take. And I remember thinking, like, yeah, fucking nice for you to say second in the World Series. You know, it's a very easy argument to make. As you say, survivor bias. Where is he now, by the way? Where is he now? Don't see him in the room. Just saying. No, but like on a serious note, yeah, I think people's risk tolerances are just different. And like Dara said, you know, you have reasons for taking shots, and there's probably some very good reasons to take shots. If you've got a really solid regular game that you're winning and you're just printing in that one, then taking the odd shot's probably fine, because you can just go back to your regular game, print some more money in that one, and it's all good. But when you know, are just throwing yourself into the monstrous variance that is tournament poker, particularly big field stuff, big field, big buy-in in this case, yeah, it is actually very sensible to lower your risk by selling some action or swapping or whatever other ways you can do it.
Yeah, I also think like it's obviously perfectly reasonable for people to challenge your markup and say, I think that's too high. And when it's somebody with the authority of showing, that's fine. Often it's not. Often it's just random people on Twitter going like, I think that's too high. And when you talk to them, they don't even understand really what markup is. And I think an unfortunate downside of that is that essentially it can drive everything underground. Like if you can sell privately without putting anything up on social media, then you're obviously very heavily incentivized to do that, because nobody even knows what your markup is. And I always want to make it available to people who follow me. I don't want it to be like an exclusive all boys club of just the people I know that I can go to. So I do tend to make it public, but you do open yourself up to then people going, and you know, as I said, if it's somebody like Sean, that's fine. You accept that as opinion. But if it's somebody that you know never buys anything, and they literally just go around pointing at
or buys 50 quid worth and then just really like annoys you for like weeks over it.
Yeah. Yeah. So I would say to people, like, just bear in mind, like, if your intentions are pure and you are trying to get markups down to fair, that's fine. But there can be unintended consequences too, where you literally drive the whole market underground as well.
Point well made. Okay, guys, so as you can already tell from the shape and structure of this one, not like our normal lock-in, not a one-take, us in our offices or whatever. We're going to try and make this a little bit more video blog style. We're going to sort of, you know, have little moments from maybe in the tournament room when we're playing tomorrow. We're going to try and add some moments of us talking about how our day went, probably a few hands. I imagine we might put out a couple of these episodes, so there might be one in the next, you know, couple of days. You're obviously watching it right now, but from our perspective in a couple of days' time. And then we're also going to have some towards the end of the week when we can give a fine, when we're counting all the money, when we're counting our millions and millions of dollars, and giving 60% of it to our friends.
Yeah, we don't know yet which of the two of us is going to win, but obviously
that's the sweat.
One of the two of us. So we might even get heads up. That's possible too.
Imagine.
It's just like, what is that even? 5 million to one shot.
I feel like you've given yourself very good odds and then made my odds terrible and combined them. How you doing, guys? So morning of the main event 1C. talk in the town is this might get to 30 million, which is insane. Dara and I had quite a relaxing sort of, call it a media day. It was just a fucking about day, really. But it was nice because it was sort of like getting to meet people, and there was a nice Irish contingent here for this event, and we spent a bit of time with them in the VIP area. Dara, tell us a little bit about your evening.
Yeah, it was very pleasant. As I said, we hung around with the Irish, Sam and Aidan and Smurf and Martin, and also a couple of non-Irish infiltrated the group. Shout out to Amanda Botfeld, who is a guest on the most recent Jip race. Buddy Villaluz, who runs the Canadian Facebook poker group. And yeah, it was very good crew of people. Lots of fun. We met Jennifer Newell as well, Vanessa Cade. Joey Ingram popped over as well to give me some abuse about my book title. I think Joey feels he owns the word GTO, so nobody else is allowed to mention it.
Yeah, I told him that I thought your book cover was going to be just a picture of his face, and I don't know what he made of that actually, because I guess the book is called GTO Simplified.
Yeah.
Anyway, on non-joking matters, yeah, we're kind of pumped and excited for this one. Obviously, it's going to be a big one. Good structure as well. They give you 100,000 chips, but they do start the blinds at 255. So it's 200 bigs with a sort of a slow incremental structure from there. We will give you regular updates as the day goes on. Go us.
Find a place to rest my bones. They keep on sticking out. Take my skin and hang it in the garden. Scrub it hard till the water runs clean. Take my brain and put it in a bathtub. Wash away the clouds of cobwebs. Busy days are here again, and keep on hanging out. Find a place to rest my.
Okay, so we're on dinner break. It has been a pretty good experience for both of us so far. I've managed to chip up to about 230k from a 100k starting stack. I was on 120 for quite a while. Then I rivered the nuts in a very favourable spot, managed to get paid. Not completely paid, didn't get the full double up, but I did get a lot. And then right before the break, while I was thinking I want to get to me dinner, I was in a blind v blind spot where I had 9 deuce off. Now, sometimes when a guy limps into me there, I would actually consider raising that one, but it was just so garbagey, and I think it's not great to raise it all the time when I have a hand as shit as that. So I did just check back, but the board came 993, which was pretty nice for my 9 deuce. It went check, I bet, he called. Turn came another 9, very nice now. Check, I bet, really small, and he took the bait and raised me. So obviously I know he can't have the nizzles here, so I know he is basically bluffing. So it's kind of like you have to take a little bit of time and induce the bluff. So I took a few seconds into my dinner break, my precious dinner break, and managed to get him to bet the river as well. So that was kind of a nice one, got me up to about 240. Dara, you cracked aces.
Yeah, I did crack aces. Yeah, I was pretty card dead, and even this hand really doesn't change that, because basically there was a raise from mid position from a guy who was probably raising 70 to 80% of hands. He was definitely the action player on the table. I had 9-5 suited in the big blind, so I defended. I 3 middling cards on the flop, but crucially 2 of my suit. So I had a flush draw and some backdoor straight draws. I check called a very small bet. On the turn, I actually hit my 9, and I check called a bigger bet because now I have a pair as well. And then I rivered the flush, but there was a 4-liner to a straight out there. Eddie Jack made a straight, so I let out fairly small, thinking he was going to check behind a lot when he just has a pair. He went into a long speech about, oh, I know you have the jack, I'll let you get there, blah blah blah, but it's happy birthday, I'm going to pay you off. So he paid me off and revealed that he had cracked aces. When I opened my hand, he went a little bit ballistic, going, you call me with that shit I raise, and you call me with 9-5. Oh my god! And he continued ranting for a while. Like very next hand, I folded the button, or so, I guess the small blind, and he goes, "Check your hand again. It might be 9-5 again." So yeah, that was quite amusing. It always amuses me, these guys who play like 70 or 80% of hands, then they get a legitimate hand. They still have that entitlement tilt when their hand is bust.
Well, look, we're going to get back at it. Hopefully, we manage to bag up big stacks later on. We're certainly in good nick to do that, so we will give you an update a little bit later.
They keep on sticking out.
How you doing, guys? Okay, so last night we didn't do a end of night thing. We thought we'd do it this morning. I was pretty tired. I actually crashed pretty quickly. I think I'm getting the sort of second and third day jet lag. But basically chipped down. We both chipped down, but I chipped down quite a bit. From my high point of about 235, 240, I ended up with 126 bagged. Don't think I played level. Don't think I played an aggressive move for the entire last level of the day yesterday. So it was all a bit sad, but that sometimes happens and you have to sort of weather levels like that. I think particularly in these kind of main event type fields, you are just going to have poor card distribution and have to, you know, battle away, just survive, just allow your stack to dwindle a little bit and hope that the cards are kinder the next morning, which I hope they will be. Now, Dara, tell us about your journey. Obviously, we last picked you up 160k around dinner break. You bagged 116. So what was the journey?
Yeah, the 160 was basically my peak. I kind of drifted back, and I went back down all the way to starting stack with about 20 minutes to go. I got 2 reshoves through, which got me back up to roughly 140, and then I basically drifted back again, including a 6 spot where I folded queens in a spot where I would never even think about it normally, but I was pretty sure it wasn't a good get-in spot. Yeah,
it was the nit at the table, 3 betting under the gun, from under the gun 1, and you were like, oh, that sounds scary.
Min bet raise, min raise as well too, which that type of player. I mean, just to say the hand briefly, Table Maniac, the guy whose aces I had cracked earlier, opened under the gun, min 3 bet, literally the first 3 bet from this guy all day. Just behind, comes around to me out queens, and I was like, oh my god, what do I do with queens here? 30 big blinds. I mean, obviously normally it's just get in, but in the end, after some thought, I decided to fold. The other guy called, flop came 10 high, check, shove for 8x pot, fold, tank fold with some random 10, and aces shown. So yeah, it was pretty.
Well, nice to get away from that one. It certainly could have played out differently. Maybe if the Maniac doesn't open, you still get done then, because just, you know, facing a 3 bet, it's going to get trickier.
I probably at least flat the queens then, and then on the 10 high board, I'm not going anywhere.
When he jams, it's going to be so gross. Anyway, that's in a different universe. In this universe, Dara's got 116. I have 126. They're both below average. Starting stacks average is probably around 230. Big news from the tournament is they did the prize, but there were alternates going in sort of past the point of late reg, because obviously that was the nature of the beast yesterday. So we didn't know the prize pool at the dinner break. I think it was even a couple of levels after dinner by the time it was all done and dusted, and they'd figured out that what they're going to do was make everyone a millionaire who makes the final table of 6. They do final tables of 6 on the WPT. So $1 million for 6th place, working its way up to a little over 4 million for first. So ridiculous. 29 million in the prize pool, 4 million up top, and yes, Dara and I would, you know, dearly love to have a little piece of that. Shout out today, I'm playing on a table with Jamie Flynn. Yesterday I was playing on a table with Stephen Keogh, who played really well. He actually bagged up a huge stack, 720k, so fingers crossed for him today. Fingers crossed for Jamie. Decent Irish contingent out there. But Dara, you have an interesting table mate for this afternoon.
Yeah, I have some guy called from Wisconsin called Phil Hellmuth.
Third.
Yeah, I have actually played with Phil before. I think it was at an Irish Open. Actually, I played with him maybe twice at the WSOP, which obviously is very much a stomping ground. But yeah, it's an interesting table. Stacks are quite bunched. Shortest stack at the table has 12 big blinds, and I think the biggest only has about 50. So most of the stacks are grouped in the sort of 20 to 40 zone. So
okay, well, you have an interesting afternoon ahead of you. We will give you an update by hook or by crook. Hopefully it will be we've chipped back up and we're doing great. It might be that we're just cockroaching around. We're both quite good at that if need be, and of course if we do have a bust out, we will let you know.
Find a place to rest my bones. They keep on sticking out.
Dara won't sing any lyrics at all. Like, way up, I feel blessed. Way up, I live the life I deserve. Blessed. Jake likes it. At least knows it's great. Jake said it was. I suck. But it was like,
I don't think you suck.
okay.
I think you're rhythmic and charming.
Charming. Woohoo!
Busy days are here again. Keep on hanging out. Find a place to rest my bones. They keep on sticking out.
Okay, so not good news, guys. I took a really nasty beat there. Heading back to the room now. I flopped the nuts. Had Jack 8 on a flop of 10, 9, 7, 2 diamonds. I defended my big blind to a cut-off open. I checky c-bet 12k, which was the same as his open size. I raised to 33k, calls, 3 diamonds on the turn, which I don't hate because I figured he would put a diamond draw in on the flop, but it might give him some equity if he's got like an overpowered diamonds. Still don't feel like I can do any other sizing than shove because I only have a pot size bet, so I shove. He goes into the tank for quite a while, eventually calls with the Jack 10 with the Jack of diamonds, and rivers the Queen of diamonds. I'm out the door. Pretty disgusting. So I'm just gonna let myself into the room now. Really, really pissed off, but that's the way it goes sometimes. Pretty good at oh Jesus. Fucking Dara. Okay. I might be filming this. I just bust as well. I'm gonna take it that you obviously bust I'm gonna say around the same time as me.
Yeah, and you're filming it, yeah.
I am filming. Dara,
Really?
look, I know people think
Filming
you take
this?
people think you
Filming
take your
this?
beats well, and I think it's good.
filming
It's
this?
healthy for people to know that you don't take your beats well all the time. But I don't think you need to take it out on me. So, not a good day at the office, it's fair to say. Dara and I basically simultaneously bust first level back after we went back for the second level of the day. I just told you my bad beat story, so boo-hoo. I'm sure you're all feeling sorry for me. Didn't quite get Dara's bad beat story. He was obviously a little bit angry, and yeah, my neck can testify to that. But maybe you want to tell us in your calmest possible voice what happened?
Oh, yeah, no, it was just perfectly standard, really. Like I had struggled for the entire tournament being short stacked, and I'd gone on a rush just before the break.
Nice.
I was up to 200k, which is the highest I'd been. Feeling
Lovely.
great. Very first hand I go back, I'm feeling brilliant. A few people missing from the table, so we get to play short-handed for
Oh,
a while.
lovely, lovely.
Guy opens from mid position. I look down at ace king. Think, oh, this is well, we're gonna have to 3-bet this now because we have 33 big blinds.
Yeah.
So we 3-bet, and Button does a whole stare and count my stack, and eventually he decides to fold. I'm thinking, okay, maybe we won't be too much excitement. This hand, Phil Hellmuth folds his big blind, and the other guy looks a little bit tortured and eventually shoves, and unfortunately now we have to call. I call quickly, and he goes, ah, fuck, I was going to flat, and he turns over jacks, and he wins the flip. So yeah, but it's, you know, that's poker. You have to be able to take your beats. I mean,
Yeah, you can't overreact to these things. You
no,
have to
absolutely not. Like, I think, you know, it's a standard.
Yeah, just on to the next one, I think.
Absolutely, yeah.
One last thing before we go, guys. Obviously there you just saw Banzai 2.0, a new and improved version of our turbo fast format short stacked poker on Unibet. Wanted to just give a couple of maybe words of advice on this one. Obviously it's not going to be everyone's cup of tea. Fast poker short stack stuff might seem a little less complicated and not exactly what everybody wants from their poker experience, but it is what a lot of people want from their poker experience, it's fair to say. And actually we were talking about this just before turning on the camera. It's a format where maybe the tournament players will quite enjoy it. It's actually a format where we're used to playing those sorts of stacks. It's not the stacks that cash game guys would normally play. So actually there could be a little something for us in this one. And Dara, you have a few thoughts.
Yeah, tournament players often envy cash game players because cash game players can, if they want to play a 10-minute session, they can. If they want to play a 4-hour session, they can. If they think they want to play a 4-hour session, but after 2 hours they're not feeling it anymore, they can just quit, which we can never really do as tournament players. The problem for us as tournament players, obviously, is when we go across and play 100 big blind, no anti-poker, we can get slaughtered by the cash game specialists. I think this is a format which it's a quick, fun gamble, but it's also a format in which, as a tournament player, you're not really going to be at a skill disadvantage. You might actually have an advantage against the cash game players because you'll understand short stack poker better.
Yeah, it's certainly the case that when Hexapro fast format lottery games were introduced, and we saw a lot more, short tournament games of that nature, short sit and go type games of that nature. It seemed as though it sort of created a new skill set, a new thing that people could get very good at. And it does feel to me with this one where, there's always edges in poker, no matter what kind of poker formula we come up with as organisers, you can always work out the strategy and play it as well as possible. So I think it's actually a very beatable game, and I think the guys will probably, who play it, enjoy it because they do like the fast format. It's probably very helpful on the phone as well. So yeah, maybe not for everybody, but I think it's got a place in the overall poker landscape, and give it a go. Banzai 2.0, guys.